let's wrap up where we are so we can, in class, discuss this a little bit further. And remember, we were following Professor Annis's comments at the end of her selection on the Meno and the Theaetetus, the small selection from the Theaetetus. And the first thing that comes up is we discuss the paradox of inquiry, which Meno raises. It's an argument to show that it's impossible to ever gain knowledge, to learn anything. And Socrates comes up with an answer, but his answer to the paradox is that he thinks he can show that it's possible to come to have true beliefs about something and then proceed to have knowledge of it. And we have to really see how that works. We've been through the steps, but we want to look at that somewhat more closely. And the way he's done that was he guides the boy, through a simple proof in geometry. The boy sees that his suggestions are wrong and Socrates' suggestion is right, and Socrates is just asking him questions the whole way. The boy comes to have true beliefs, and the claim is if he goes over the proof himself a few more times, that he will come to have knowledge. Now, Professor Annis mentions, and I kind of skimmed over this at first, just so we can take, that there's a problem with this, that Socrates is asking leading questions. And let's think about, why is that an issue? I'm not sure it is. The response is the boy works out the problem by following Socrates' suggestions that he comes to true belief. And then the answer is, it is giving an account of the reasons why that ties down the beliefs and turns them into knowledge. And we'll hold off that point until we go into a little bit detail about the issue that we're going to take up in a second, or that we're going to mention in a second. But the claim so far is that the boy comes to know through a process of recollection. He wasn't taught geometry, therefore for the boy to understand the proof, he's going through a process of recalling what his soul knew before the present life, which kind of raises the following question, or the following question rears its ugly head, as we sometimes say in English. Is Socrates' account of true belief and knowledge dependent on the soul's pre-existence, or the doctrine that of reincarnation, that the soul is immortal and never dies, and we require one of those in order to have knowledge? And is that the point that Socrates is making, and is that the objection he's raising to the paradox of inquiry? Past this, and I want you to look in the book a little bit more closely. Of course, he then, after finishing up talking to Meno about the demonstration that he had with the boy, he asks, can knowledge, and he's talking about his teacher is his teacher, but he says, can one have knowledge of excellence even if it cannot be taught? I should say cannot. And then I think he's making a point, but think about what is the relevance of that whole question, whether you can come to have true beliefs and knowledge. And he gives you this story about knowledge and true belief with respect to the road to Larissa. It's Meno's hometown. It's not relevant that it's his hometown, but the idea is something. Can you come to, are true beliefs good enough to get you to Larissa? Are they going to accomplish the task, or do you need knowledge to get you there? And what is the relationship between the two? Because I think if you look at it closely enough, you're going to see that Socrates is implying that there is a relationship between true beliefs, that if you do something with true beliefs, you can turn them into knowledge. And he has that example that he kind of winds up with, that knowledge must tie down the statues. He talks about the statues of Daedalus, just so you guys know what that whole story is about. This artist Daedalus, which Socrates seems to say is related to in some of the dialogues. I don't remember if it was precisely here. I think here he might have actually said it's one of his relatives. But there was an artist who made these statues that looked so lifelike that people thought that they were just going to run off. And maybe they, in New York, we've heard of, back in the old days, they used to have an expression called five-finger discount, like shoplifting. So maybe statues took off like, stuff takes off from stores in the hands of shoplifters. But if you tie them down, if you lock them up, you're not going to have the problem. And somehow there's an analogy between locking the statues up and locking up the beliefs in a certain way, which yields knowledge. And I think that's part of the answer to the question. But this is something that in our next session we will go through in a little bit more detail to see if we can figure out what does all of this tell us ultimately about epistemology, about knowledge and true belief in the meaning of knowledge.